Tessa, would you like to begin?
Sure. I know that, I'll start my video. I know that Mr. Johnson is not going to be attending. I did not hear from Mr. Dawson whether he's attending or not, so I assumed he was going to be here. But we can get started if you'd like.
Okay. Well, we're going to call our meeting to order. This is the Zoning Hearing Board meeting for Tuesday, May 11th. Tessa, can we begin with a roll call?
Yes, we can. We have a roll call of the members. Mr. Johnson is absent. Ms. King?
Here.
And Mr. Dawson is absent. Ms. Gunchin?
Here.
And Mr. Manella?
Here.
All right, we have 3 out of the 5 members present, and we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Can we please have a motion to approve the minutes from April 11th?
So moved. Seconded.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
Yes.
All approve? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Minutes from April 13th, 2021 are approved.
Thank you, Tessa. Before we have our appeals to be heard, can we have all of our panelists who will be speaking today have you sworn in for your testimony?
Sure. Do you want me to allow all the panelists that I'm aware of to speak, allow them to speak?
Yes.
Okay. Panelists, for those that do plan on speaking today, if I could ask you to use the raise hand function, and I will allow you to talk. Okay, everyone that raised their hand is now permitted to speak.
Thank you.
Williams here.
Dwayne Bueller.
Jeff Kidder.
Donald Morphy.
Candace Battles.
David Wadomski.
That should be everybody.
Anna.
Okay.
Okay, I need you all to raise your hand, and after you say I do, I need you to state your name. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
I do.
I
Jeff
do.
Kidder. David Wadomski.
Donald Morphy.
Candace Battles, I do.
I do. Shalane Bueller.
I
Okay.
do. David Wadomski.
Thank you.
I do. Anthony Williams.
Okay. Thank you. Tessa, can you mute
Yes.
those panelists, please? Before we hear the first appeal, Dawn, can you please explain to those here in attendance today what happens with a tie today, since there are 3 of us?
Well, there is a quorum, so there wouldn't be a tie. There, you mean, we have 3, don't we?
Yes. Do we have 3?
Yeah, Laura is here. Yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry.
I didn't
Okay,
see
I'm
it.
sorry. I see Laura. Sorry, Laura. Okay, my apologies. Okay, Tessa, our first appeal, please.
Okay. Our first appeal today is appeal number 12251 by Sheilane Bueller, index number 3010-212, concerning property located at 155 West 8th Street. The appellant is seeking a use variance to renovate the existing building into dormitories in a central commercial C3 zoning district. Per section 204.17 of the city zoning ordinance, dormitories are not a permitted use in the C3 zoning district. And we do have Sheilane Bueller present, so I'm going to allow her to speak again.
Ms. Bueller, if you could state your name and your address, please, and then give your
Yes.
testimony.
Shalane Beeler with Beeler and Associates. I'm at 55 West Ridge Road, Suite 203, Erie, PA. And I am representing Gannon University.
Well, this is a kind of a technicality, Ms. Bueller, but are you an attorney?
I'm an architect.
So you're speaking on behalf of the proposal.
Yes, correct.
Say you're representing Gannon, only an attorney would be permitted to technically represent them, or a member of Gannon themselves. So as a third party,
I'm presenting the appeal today.
you're speaking on behalf of the appeal or of the
Correct.
proposal. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
correct.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Bueller.
Okay, I appreciate you allowing us to present this today. Gannon recently purchased the property at 155 West 8th Street. They are proposing to renovate the existing 40,000 square foot 4-story building for dormitories with a maximum of 100 beds. The C3 Central Commercial District does not allow dormitories as a permitted use and special exceptions, so we are requesting a use variance for a dormitory use at this property. Part of our explanation is Gannon currently has a dormitory, Worley Hall, at just 2 blocks away at 211 West 6th Street, which is very old and very tired and is in dire need of repairs and upgrades in order to meet current codes and student needs. And the large amount of modernization just doesn't make it technically feasible to renovate it in that location. It needs elevators, there's no parking there, and the zoning ordinance requires parking for the dormitories as one example. The C3 Central Commercial District does allow multifamily dwellings for a use and not the dormitories, which is similar density of the living spaces. So, and ironically, just across the street is an RLB district, which does allow dormitories as a special exception. Therefore, permitting a dormitory across the street on the east side of Sassafras would not adversely change the integrity of this neighborhood. And the parking requirements for C3 zoning, as you know, there doesn't require off-street parking in that C3 zoning. However, a dormitory use, if it were in an RLB, for example, would require 1 space per 4 beds plus the 5 parking spaces for visitors, which would be 30 spaces required. Well, this property has parking on 2 levels. So there are a total of 86 parking spaces, which would be maintained for this facility. So we would still meet the requirements for a dormitory, for parking requirements for a dormitory. And Gannon has many facilities and they're monitored by their Gannon Police and Security, and this would be no exception. They would also monitor this building. They have an excellent reputation for policing and controlling and maintaining their facilities. Thereby, this would minimize any disturbance to the neighborhood. One of the hardships we feel is that there's limited property available in the Gannon campus that allows dormitory use, RLB or R3, there's limited properties in this. And the zoning has changed over the years. For instance, their North Hall dormitory, which was just built a few years ago, which is between 4th and 5th, and Peach and Sass, when it was built, was an RLB zoning, and it is now a C3 zoning. So it has changed a little and has decreased some of the RLB properties available on the campus. The use variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. It won't impair the appropriate use of the development or adjacent properties or be detrimental to the public welfare. The properties to the immediate north across West 8th Street is Methodist Towers Apartments. Just to the east of Methodist Towers is Gannon Zern Science Center building. And then to the east of that is their engineering building, academic building. Just to the east of this immediate property is a parking garage. And then to the east of that is Gannon's Palumbo Academic Center. To the south of this property is the parking for this building, plus then just south of that is parking for the Erie County Children and Youth and Erie County Human Services building. So there's a buffer of 2 parking spaces between that building. To the west of this, across Sassafras, are apartment buildings, and then just north and west of this are also more apartments, which are owned by Gannon. And we feel that the dormitory in this location would be less intrusive than if it were in the middle of a residential type of neighborhood because of the surroundings here. The variance represents, we believe the use variance represents a minimum variance that will for relief and represent the least modifications possible of the regulations. I submitted also the site plan, which shows the parking, the 2 levels of the parking, and then the concept drawings, which would show the proposed dormitory use. Again, a maximum, I think the plans show 98 beds, and the maximum we could fit in there anyway would be 100 beds. So again, we're requesting a use variance, and we certainly appreciate your consideration in this matter. Are there any questions?
Does anyone from the board have any questions for Ms. Bueller? No.
I have one question, Madam Chair. What is the present use of this building?
If I may, it was professional office buildings for many years, and then it was vacant for several years when Gannon purchased the building.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor for this project? Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak against this project? Anyone to speak against? Hearing none. Tessa?
Do we have a call for a vote? A motion to approve the appeal?
Yes, we'll call for the vote.
Okay. Ms. Kunchin?
I vote yes.
Mr. Manella?
Yes.
And Ms. King?
Yes.
We have 3 yeses and the appeal is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bueller. Tessa, for the next case, please.
Can I have just a second, please? I'm sorry.
Sure, no problem.
Is it going to be Columbia Circle or 8th or Front Street, the next case?
Columbia Circle.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Our next case is appeal number 12252 by Michael Grab, index number 4121-402. Concerning property located at 122 Columbia Circle. The appellant is seeking a dimensional variance to construct an addition to a single-family dwelling in a low-density residential R1 zoning district. Per section 205 of the city zoning ordinance, the minimum width of the least side yard is 5 feet. The appellant is proposing a minimum width of 0 feet. Per section 205, the minimum total width of these side yards is 15 feet. The appellant is proposing a minimum total width of 12 feet, 6 inches.
Thank you, Tessa. Do we have someone to speak for in testimonies? Mr. Grab on?
Yes, Mr. Grab, I am permitting to speak right now.
Okay, I unmuted. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we appreciate your taking the time to consider this dimensional variance. On behalf of Dr. Peter Lund, I'm here to present the appeal. Along with me is Chuck Gresh, who's the builder for the project. Well, let me describe the conditions on this city lot. It's located, you may know this, but it's kind of tucked away there, Columbia Circle, more or less at the foot of Madison with a bayfront view. Directly to the west is the Ravine Drive leading to Erie Yacht Club and the Ferncliff residential development. Straight north would be a view of Presque Isle Bay. There are properties, 2 residences directly to the east. And our appeal here is to consider constructing a 1-story first floor master bedroom suite that includes a sleeping room together with a master closet and bathroom with a small connector, which you may see if you have the drawing in front of you. It's a 6-foot proposed connector, which is enclosed. This residence currently doesn't have a bedroom on the first floor. The couple is, well, in their later 60s, which, presents a bit of a concern over the years as they get older to have what would be a first floor master suite. So with that in mind, we considered placement, and the lot 90-foot width is a bit of a challenge to think that ideally this addition would be placed on the north, meaning taking advantage of the bayfront views. So with that in mind, our thought was we could put a nice sized addition, roughly 610 square feet, on the northwest corner of the residence, which of course creeps to the west and gets close to that property line. The existing dimension, by the way, is 32 feet. And our proposal would say, can we go to the property line without the 5-foot minimum setback? We would achieve then a 12-foot 6-inch overall by way of the east property setback, which is currently in place and has been so since the residence was constructed in the 1960s. And that's 12-foot 6. And if you would keep in mind, again, the lot more or less looks larger as you stand to view it because of the flat sections that are owned by the Port Authority. And that goes against to the west and to the north, which I guess are sort of maintained by the owner, meaning that the Port Authority isn't up there cutting the lawn and that sort of thing. So there's plenty of space to work with. If you go on that Port Authority flat portion, you'll get about 60 feet until you hit the top of the bank, which is the Ravine Drive bank. Not sure what else I can share with you here just to give you a sense of what the request is, but if we could get more or less to the property line, which would be that 32-foot dimension to work with as a 1-story bedroom addition, that would be ideal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Thank you, Mr. Grab. Does anyone on the board have any questions for Mr. Grab? Any questions? No? Is there anyone else who's here to speak in favor for this project? Anyone else here to speak in favor? Hearing none. Is there anyone here to speak against this project? Anyone to speak against? Okay, hearing none, are we ready to call for the vote? Okay, Tessa?
May we have a call for the vote? Ms. Gundry,
I vote yes.
Mr. Manila,
I vote yes.
and Ms. King.
Yes.
And we have 3 yeses and the appeal is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grab. Dawn, are you okay? Are you ready for us to move?
Thank you for checking. Give me 10 seconds, please.
Okay.
I'm working off of the emails today instead of hard copy, so I'm calling them up one at a time. So
Okay, no worries.
I'm fine. Thanks, Lita. I'm good.
Okay, thanks. Tessa?
Our next appeal is appeal number 12253 by Jeff Kidder, index number 4041-122, concerning property located at 463 West Front Street. The appellant is seeking a dimensional variance to construct a single-family dwelling in a waterfront residential WR zoning district. Per section 205, the minimum depth of the rear yard is 20 feet. The appellant is proposing a rear yard of 3 feet, 1 3/4 inches. Per section 205, the maximum lot coverage for the WR district is 50%. The appellant is proposing a lot coverage of 56.5%. Per section 205.23, the minimum distance between any street property line and any garage doors facing the street shall be 20 feet. The appellant is proposing a distance of 0 feet between the street property line and the garage doors facing the street.
Thank you, Tessa. Mr. Kidder, are you here to speak today?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
and also property owner Don Morphy is also here and he'd like to speak too.
Okay,
I just permitted him to speak as well.
thank you. Okay, Mr. Kidder.
So I'll let Don speak in a minute, but this is a continuation of our presentation at last month's meeting where we heard feedback from the neighbors and from the zoning hearing board and made some adjustments and are back for reconsideration. Before I get into the actual request, I'd like Don to just introduce himself and explain why he's doing this.
Yes, good morning. I purchased this lot originally as a dwelling for my son and his partner and my grandson originally when they lost their lease. I had never intended it to be a landlord situation. I was planning on them with a land contract that they eventually would be able to get a mortgage on and then purchase the place with an income property below the place where they were living. Unfortunately, their partnership broke up. My grandson and his mother continued to live there. They were supposed to pay me rent. They actually never did, but nevertheless, it was my grandson, so I obviously let them live there. I had never intended it to be a landlord situation. That was never my intention. In the meantime, I ran a business. I traveled extensively throughout the world, so I was not here very much. My partner lives in Canada, so I was, again, not at the dwelling very much. And quite frankly, after my grandson moved out with his mother, I actually did leave the property in a very bad state and didn't maintain it very well. Meanwhile, my partner agreed that this would be an ideal spot for our retirement home. So in light of that, after reviewing the house and realizing that I couldn't really convert it to a single family again, since it had been split in half with both electric and all utilities split, and the design was not conducive at all to a single family dwelling again. We decided that we would tear it down and build a new house. So in light of that, I paid to have the house torn down. I removed the basement, removed a tree in the front, had the city replace it someplace else, and just did basic landscaping to keep it halfway decent until we could start a new building. So my intention there is to build a single family dwelling that we would live in our retirement. That would be my permanent residence. I also own a house on West 9th Street that I would sell after this house is finished. So again, I don't really have any excuse for the deterioration that I allowed to happen in the meantime. But what I can say is that we are committed to the neighborhood, and we want to add value to the property by building a new building there. I hired Jeff because Jeff is well known for maintaining existing neighborhoods and fitting the buildings that he builds and designs to the neighborhood. So basically, that's what my position is on the project going forward.
Okay, so the three variances we're requesting, as Tessa said, and adjustments to compare it to the last time is, this is a very small property as we presented. It's only 23.8 feet wide and roughly 70 feet long, which is in the scale of city at the very small end, but it was an existing lot and it did have an existing structure on it and a garage at one point. We are requesting, previously we requested a lot coverage of 61.5% instead of the 50 max, and we made some adjustments to make part of the building smaller, and we're down to a 56.5% coverage. Primarily, we did that by hearing the comments of neighbors and abutting property owners, and we have made what was before full footprint of a 3-story building. We've shrunk the 3-story part of the building narrower so that that particular wall is 6 feet 1 3/4 inches from the east property line, instead of the 3 feet 1 3/4 we were requesting before. The other thing, and I don't know, Tessa, if you want me to explain it, or you should, with the changes of last time we were requesting a side yard setback and now it's a rear yard setback because of discoveries that the zoning office made with the property. I don't know if you want me to explain that, or Jake or Tessa should, if that makes any difference.
Tessa?
Yeah, sure. So we did refer to public right-of-way maps, and we did discover that the parcel that is just north of this property is actually owned by the Port Authority. So that area where West Front Street is, that's actually not an official public right-of-way. And so this property is not a corner lot as previously thought. And so that north and south property lines, we are considering to be side yards. The east property line is now a rear yard, and the west property line along Walnut Street is the front yard.
So when we were made aware of that, the general premise of the overall design of the building is similar in that we do view it as a corner building, but technically now, being that the east property is the rear yard, there is a minimum rear yard setback of 20 feet. Well, the property is only 23.8 feet wide, so we can't build a building on there and comply with that. I mean, so the design is really meant, the redesign is really meant to take into account the comments of the neighbors and trying to still build a building on here that satisfies the program requested in the single family home, but respect some distances to the neighbors. And there is a part of the building that is 3 feet 1 3/4 inches off, and that was really to accommodate the depth of the garage, to have a functioning garage on this property. And that part of the building is only 2 stories high at that point. But what we consider to be the 3-story part of the house is at least 6 feet from the property line. The third request pertains to the garage setback, where zoning requires 20 feet. And again, with the depth of the lot only being 23.8 feet wide, we can't comply in adherence with the zoning with that either, just due to the dimensions. So, and there is precedent for 0 setback garages. The zoning hearing board approved one a few years ago on 107 Plum Street, and there are other existing garages in the neighborhood. It's not common, but they do exist. And so we feel that we've made some adjustments. We've listened to the neighbors. We did have a meeting yesterday on site with the abutting property owners and other neighbors. We went through our changes from the last application and talked over some possible modifications in that we could slide the building to the north as much as zoning setback would allow us, to open up the gap to the south a little bit more, and not require any variances for that. But I submitted in writing the responses to the 5 variance criteria. I can read through those if you want, but I feel that we meet all the 5 criteria, primarily due to the size of the property and that it was previously developed, and we're developing it in a manner that it fits into the context of the neighborhood. That's, if you have any questions, but I know some of the neighbors we met with yesterday are on this call also, so I would open it up to their input also.
Thank you, Mr. Kidder. Do any of our board members have any questions for either Mr. Kidder or Mr. Morphy?
I do, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you to both of you for the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Morphy, for acknowledging the fact that the property has been in disrepair for quite some time. We appreciate that very much. I had 2 questions and you've kind of answered them through the course of your conversation. My first question was, have you spoken with the neighbors? You're speaking with the neighbors is after you have submitted the changes. I mean, they are reflective of the things that we talked about at the last meeting. My biggest concern was the distance between 461 and 463 at, I think it was the 3 feet, and the fact that you have now over 6 feet makes me a little bit more comfortable there. My second question for the both of you was, what are you going to do if we don't grant the variance today? And Mr. Kidder, you kind of answered that in a roundabout way, that there is additional potential to move the property on the lot, to move the design on the lot a little bit. Me personally, I'm a little frustrated by that. I think if we had done our homework fully prior to getting here, your answer would be, like, we've looked at this every way from Sunday. This is it. This is our strongest case forward.
So that idea of moving it north a little was after discussions with the neighbor to the south. In I guess both designs we presented maintained the existing north wall and existing porch as it's historically been. And that was really from maintaining the context of the neighborhood along Front Street. We really only have about 2 or 3 feet to move it north, and not quite align with the house next door. Yesterday, I thought we could, but being that it is the side yard setback, we can only go north a couple feet. And that was kind of a minor adjustment, but it does add a couple feet to the south. And again, I was approaching it to maintain the context along Front Street, because that's the established, perceived front of the building. And we're just trying to find a balance here to comply with the zoning and not require any other variances.
Thank you.
PJ, do you have any questions?
No, Madam Chair, I do not.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Kidder, Mr. Morphy. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of the variances? Anyone else to speak in favor? Okay. Hearing none, do we have anyone to speak against the variances? Anyone to speak against?
I do see a couple hands held up.
Okay. Tessa will call you in the order that she sees them on the screen for you to give testimony.
Okay, I'm going to begin with David Wodomski. You are now permitted to speak.
Okay, thank you very much. The current drawings that are on the system now for the variance they're asking for, I don't have a problem with those. And yesterday, after meeting with Mr. Kidder and Mr. Morphy, I'm feeling better about the whole situation. However, I have, I guess, 3 questions. When I look at slide, this would probably be for Mr. Kidder to answer. When I look at slide 65, can I assume that's an old slide? Because that slide shows the entire structure being 3 foot, 1 3/4 inches away from my home to the east. But I see several other slides that show the bulk of the structure being 6 foot away. I just want to be sure that slide 65 is not what's going to happen. My second question is, as Mr. Kidder stated, they're talking about now moving a couple feet to the north to accommodate Tony, who lives in the house to the south of the property. I really don't have a problem with that. I was told yesterday that the farthest they would go is that the new structure would basically be in line with the front of my home at 463. If that's the case, I'm A-OK. But there's no drawings stating that, and I just want to be sure that it's not going to go farther out than my home towards the bay. And my last question is just kind of a question comment. I was told that the Port Authority has the right of way or owns the property right off the curb, and that my side yard is basically now a backyard for the new property. So am I right in assuming that the new property is going to be addressed off Walnut Street instead of Front Street? I'm just trying to get a handle on what's going on, if that makes any sense to anybody. So if Mr. Kidder could answer my first 2 questions
Yes.
adequately, I think I'll be on board with this.
Am I on, Tessa?
You are.
Okay. The drawings online are not the right drawings. As Dave referred to 65, this whole submission is is our old submission from the previous month. Am I wrong? It says March 23rd on my letter and online, and the current application was April 19th. Those are all old drawings.
If I could jump in, so we do have your updated application on the city's website. Attached to that, we do have your old application as well.
Okay.
Procedure to include every, appeal with that application.
I got it. So Dave, if you look at 52, drawing or page 52, that has the one I showed you yesterday, or the one that we're basing this application on.
Yes, and 52 looks fine to me. I just wanted to be sure that we weren't going with 65.
Correct. Okay. And then the sliding up of north, we, based on discussions that I've had with zoning, what we talked about yesterday of at least aligning with your porch is we might be a couple feet behind that. We have to.
That's even better for me, if that's
okay. But only a couple if we do. I just have, because that property line is on an angle, I just want to make sure that we understand where the exact 6 foot setback line is. Is that correct, Tessa?
That is correct. Yeah, the setback would have to be an average of 6 feet.
Right.
Okay. Okay, that's all. And what about the address? Because I'm curious too about that. It would stay as is, Front Street? Because it's always been that?
That's my understanding, correct? Jake might have more comment on that.
I don't really.
Yeah, we would maintain that. We would maintain that existing address. There would be no need to readdress the property.
Well, I thank you for letting me speak. All my questions have been answered.
Thank you so much, Mr. Radomski.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else to speak against?
I do see a few other hands up. I'm going to permit Anthony Williams to speak now.
Thank you. I'm the property owner to the south. And yes, we did finally have a meeting yesterday, 10:30 or so. Couple of corrections to the record. The property has been maintained for the past few months. I'd say a month or two prior to the zoning process started. So it's been a short-term maintenance period. Neither here nor there, as long as it's maintained. We did come to agreements with clearing that sidewalk so that it's safe for pedestrians. I'm a bit nervous about the zero clearance for the driveway, being zero setback for the driveway. That's something that greatly concerns me. And as we discussed yesterday, part of the discussion was that they would move the home approximately 15 feet away from my home. It sounds like they're discussing lessening that amount. And I could be misunderstanding what he's saying, but it seems they're going to lessen that amount. My concern is I have a wonderful view and I mourn losing that. I was not bad with the other house there. I had grown accustomed to it. So I'm always concerned with the change that this new home will make. And it sounds like a wonderful home. It sounds very energy efficient, very modern, very functional. But it's also in a neighborhood of 100-year-old homes. So it's going to be difficult to fit into that. I mean, it's not impossible, but we shall see. Again, that's my concern, is that we discussed more space, but now I'm told it's less.
Can I comment, Tessa?
Very, very briefly.
Okay, I'm sorry. When our formal application had the building 10 and a half feet from Tony's property, and what we talked about yesterday, as Dave indicated, of moving it to the north, and what I thought we could go the maximum distance, I might be a foot or so using the average, so less than what we thought yesterday. So I think we'll be right around 15 feet from Tony's property instead of the 10'6" and still comply with the side yard setback at the north. So we're better than we were, but we're about a foot short of what we talked about yesterday. And then with the garage, we did talk about that. And the current cars that are going to be in that garage are newer and have backup cameras and backup alarms and other safety devices built into the cars. We also talked about backing into the garage versus pulling it forward, which makes it easier. So there's a couple opportunities for minimizing any risk to pedestrians that may exist. So and being fully aware of it, I think Mr. Morphy and others in the house are going to be conscious of it every time they pull out of that garage too. So, and that there is precedent for some other properties that have this same condition.
Thank you, Mr. Kidder. Tessa, anyone else to speak?
Yes. Next we have Candace Battles.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking our time to hear the neighborhood's concerns. I'm the coordinator for the West Bayfront Neighborhood Watch Group. And I think that we had a very productive meeting yesterday, and people were all willing to give as much as feasible, considering the limitations of the size of the lot. I think that all of the gentlemen who have spoke before me have presented the information and covered everything now that was discussed. And I think that this would be something that would benefit the neighborhood. And we like to also thank Mr. Brophy for his recognition of our concerns, and that we can work together in the future for the good of both the property owner and the community. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Battles. Do we have anyone else to speak against, Tessa?
I did see another hand up, but it looks like it went down now.
Okay. Are we ready to call for a vote?
Before we do, if I might, Selena, this is just addressed to the 3 board members. There was a question raised after the last hearing, whether, given that there's 3 independent variance requests here, whether we should have 3 separate votes. We didn't discuss that before the hearing. Maybe we were a little remiss. I should have brought that up. Mr. Kidder, do you still have a feeling about that? Do you want the board to vote on it 3 separate variances, or do you want them to just vote on the entire package?
I'm going to leave it up to what is protocol for you guys. If you're in favor of all of them, I'd say 1 vote. If there's some issues with single ones, I would like to know which ones we're okay with and which ones we're not. So I don't have a preference.
Okay.
But whatever you think from legal standpoint is appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Laura and PJ, can you give any feedback of how you feel about handling this vote-wise?
I do have a question that might help me make that decision. What we're talking about in terms of Mr. Morphy and Mr. Kidder's application sounds to me like it's different than what was agreed upon yesterday on site. So if we're voting on what was submitted to the record, there's talk about another foot, all of that. I mean, are we as board members all on the same page about the agreement with the neighbors versus what was submitted for the record?
Can we consider what was agreed upon with the neighbors, because we didn't see anything on that. We've just gone by testimony. Dawn?
Well, yeah, I mean, their oral testimony is just as valid as their written application if they verbally amended it. But I think if there is some question about exactly what it is, we better make it clear before we vote.
I would appreciate that.
Mr. Kidder?
I would say if you made it contingent upon the house moving to the north to meet the minimum setback from the north property line is basically what we were offering. And it doesn't require any additional variances. It's just an adjustment to meet the minimum setback rather than be potentially, away from the minimum. So is that what you mean?
Laura?
I mean, can you can approve something with an contingency? Is that correct, Don? Or not?
Yeah, if we're not voting on a variance, I don't think it's a necessarily a change in the application. Yeah, that, I don't see that as a problem.
Okay. So if we're able to use oral testimony today that Mr. Kidder and Mr. Morphy are in agreement with what transpired on site yesterday, that then has the neighborhood in further agreement, I'm clear.
Okay. So we're comfortable with doing one vote?
I am.
All right. Okay, Tessa, we're ready to call for the vote.
Okay. We have a call for the vote. Ms. Gunshin,
I'll be voting yes.
Mr. Manila,
I'll vote. I'll vote yes.
and Ms. King.
Yes.
Okay, we have 3 yeses and the appeal is approved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kidder.
Thank you.
Okay, Tessa, do you want to take it from here?
Yes, let's see. So we do have, next on the agenda, we do have executive session.
I think I might be able to add something here. I'll leave it up to what you guys want to do, but I think I might have what I had, first of all, I want to verify from Frank that the recording has stopped. And once the recording is stopped, because the only reason I'm saying this is because I understand it's kind of difficult to go into that other website. I just wanted us to talk privately. So once the people who have joined today's meeting are no longer on queue or whatever, and once Frank turns off the Facebook or YouTube or whatever stream, that we could just talk among ourselves. There's nothing really that sensitive that I just wanted to give you guys an update. Or we can go into that separate room, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, Don, just to be clear, we are going into the separate Zoom room. The recording cannot stop, but we're going to continue as
Okay,
if
thank
this
you.
was a public meeting. And then we will come back into this room and adjourn the meeting. But for those who are watching, there will be no further decisions happening other than adjournment of the meeting. So if they choose to leave and don't want to wait around for adjournment, they may do so. But this will probably just be some dead air while we go into the other Zoom meeting. It's the only way we can do breakout rooms when it's a live webinar. So
okay, I'm
just
sorry.
to
Thank you.
clarify, everyone will have to go into that Zoom meeting. Shannon, you will not, of course, have to because there'll be no testimony. So we can do that if everyone has the email, hopefully, and we can do this pretty smoothly. I don't know. I think Frank will probably stay on here, but there will be dead air for a while on YouTube if anyone's watching. So if anyone, Selena, if we want to just adjourn to executive session and hopefully everyone can smoothly transition into another Zoom.
Okay.
I'll stay on and see if there's any stragglers.
Thanks.
Thanks,
So we'll
Kathy.
adjourn to executive session and then come right back after the session's over. Thanks, everyone.
Tessa, I don't see anyone in the waiting room. Do you see others? Oh, I see them. Okay, I'll just stay on in
Okay,
case others, okay?
okay. We will be back.
Don, are you able to get there?
I was earlier. I'm trying to again. I actually did go in there inadvertently at the beginning. Is that you, Kathy?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, I actually did get in there inadvertently at the beginning. I'm going to try to do it again here.
Okay. All right. Shannon, you just gonna hang tight for a minute?
Yeah, if we have to come back and adjourn the meeting, so I'll just stay here. I'll just put myself on, I'll just put myself on mute.
Grab a drink of water or something, some coffee.
All right, yeah, they're gonna be a few minutes. Maybe I'll just turn my camera off then, just. I'll be able
Okay,
to
yeah,
see
that would
everything.
work.
Okay, all right, no problem, thanks.
I see Shalane Bueller, if you're still on, they won't be taking any more regular, making any decisions after this except adjournment. So if you're ready to log off, or maybe you've walked away from your computer, but just making sure if anyone who's ready to leave can leave, unless you want to watch the adjournment.
I'm just waiting for Dawn and PJ to come over, and then we'll ask for a motion to adjourn and conclude our meeting today. Just waiting for Dawn. Thanks for your patience today, guys.
Do we need Dawn to adjourn the meeting? I don't think we do. We have a quorum.
I didn't know for minutes' sake, since he takes the minutes, I wasn't sure. Okay, well, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.